Every morning, rain or shine, Mark, a devoted single dad, walked the same quiet streets with his little boy, stopping by a small run-down cafe where a weary woman worked long hours just to make ends meet. She had no family to rely on, and life had thrown her more challenges than anyone should face. Mark didn't think twice. He quietly left breakfast for her, helped cover small bills, and offered kind words that seemed to light up her day. It wasn't about recognition. It was about doing the right thing, showing compassion in a world that often forgets it. But life has a way of turning the simplest acts into something unexpected. One ordinary morning, Mark approached the cafe with his son, only to find the doors swinging open not to the familiar faces he knew, but to a group of sharply dressed people with serious expressions. The woman he had quietly helped over the past months now stood beside them, her face calm yet unreadable. 4 imposing bodyguards flanked the group, and the air felt heavier than ever. Mark's heart raced. Lawyers? Bodyguards? What was going on? In that moment, everything he thought he knew about her life, her struggles, and their small morning routine seemed to shift in an instant. Was she hiding something? Or was this unexpected confrontation about something far bigger than he could imagine? Mark had no idea that his simple kindness would soon place him in the middle of a story far more complicated and far more dangerous than he could have ever anticipated. Mark stepped back, unsure whether to greet them or run. The woman he had quietly helped all those mornings, her smile, her tired eyes, the little stories she sometimes shared, suddenly felt like a stranger. Who were these people? And why did they need 4 bodyguards just to speak to him? The street that once felt safe and familiar now carried a strange tension, like a warning he couldn't quite read. He remembered the first time he noticed her struggles. She had spilled coffee on herself while juggling orders, apologized to customers while shaking with exhaustion, and smiled through it all. Something about her resilience had struck him, and he'd started leaving sandwiches and small gifts without expecting anything in return. Helping her had become a quiet habit, a way to teach his son about kindness. Yet now, all of that seemed complicated by a sudden layer of wealth, influence, or maybe secrets he hadn't seen coming. As the lawyers approached, Mark's mind raced. Did she owe someone money? Was she in trouble? Or had she been hiding something important? The briefcase one of them carried seemed heavy with significance, and the bodyguard's eyes never left him. His son tugged at his sleeve, sensing the tension in the air, and Mark forced a calm voice, trying to hide his own unease. The woman looked at him, her expression unreadable, and finally spoke. But the words she chose only deepened the mystery. Mark realized that his small act of kindness had unknowingly pulled him into a world he had never imagined, and there was no turning back. Mark's mind was spinning as he tried to process what was happening. The woman he had helped so many times now seemed almost untouchable, surrounded by power and authority he had never imagined. Her calm demeanor only made the situation more unsettling. Why had she suddenly involved lawyers and bodyguards? Was it a threat, a warning, or something else entirely? He couldn't tell, and every instinct in him screamed that this was far bigger than a morning routine gone wrong. The lawyers began speaking, their voices polite but firm. They mentioned meetings, agreements, and obligations he didn't understand, and Mark realized he was suddenly out of his depth. His son tugged at his hand again, whispering questions that made his heart ache. He wanted to protect the little world they had, a world built on small acts of kindness. But now it felt fragile, like a glass that could shatter at any moment. Meanwhile, the woman stood silently, watching him, and Mark began to notice subtle details he had overlooked before. The expensive watch on her wrist, the sleek car parked nearby, the way she carried herself with quiet confidence. She was not the struggling cafe worker he had believed her to be. And yet, there was a vulnerability in her eyes, a hint of something complicated lurking beneath her composed exterior. As the tension thickened, Mark wondered if his help had unknowingly crossed boundaries or triggered something he didn't understand. The quiet neighborhood, once familiar and safe, now felt like the stage for a story with hidden stakes, secrets, and consequences. Every word the lawyers spoke added another layer of mystery, and Mark realized that his simple act of kindness had drawn him into a world of unknown power, influence, and danger, where every choice could change everything. Mark's pulse raced as the group moved closer, the bodyguards flanking them like silent shadows. Every step felt heavier than the